The clock hit 0060 again, and Lydia was on the bus. She hadn't planned on being there at this hour, but the vehicle had been delayed by traffic and then by an accident on the highway. There were only 3 people on the bus aside from the driver, and they were all staring at the flickering digital clock above the driver's seat. Then it happened, 0061.
We should stop. It's better if we are not moving. Then we can avoid any accidents on the road.
Yes, it will probably pass in a couple of minutes like the previous time.
The driver, already wary, slowed the bus to a crawl since the clock went beyond 0059. He made eye contact with Lydia through the rearview mirror.
I'm okay with pulling over.
The driver pulled the bus over, only a few blocks away from the on-ramp to the highway. The highway was almost empty. At 0065, a lone car passed. Moments later, sirens wailed in the distance. Lydia looked at her phone and sent a message to her husband.
Stuck in the hour of the devil. We've pulled over until it passes.
In 2058, a phenomenon had started that no one could explain. For the first time, clocks across the world defied logic, creeping past 0059 into the impossible 00, 60, 061, etc., and they would reset to 100 a.m. as if nothing had happened. Initially, few noticed. Most were asleep, but those who had noticed began recording it and reporting it everywhere. The next day, many people remained awake to witness, across different time zones, but it didn't happen until 8 days later. When it happened again, catastrophes followed, vehicle crashes, people dying accidentally, things falling apart during the extra minutes until the clock went back to its natural curse. People started calling it the time of the devil. The science didn't know how to explain it. Theories poured in: software glitches, magnetic disturbances, atmospheric interference. The randomness of the phenomenon only deepened the fear. No one could predict when the clocks would slip beyond their boundaries. Days, weeks, and sometimes months passed without incident. And then, without warning, 0060 returned. There were conspiracy theorists, people saying it was the governments or the aliens. The astronomers became obsessed with how to explain it. But with time, it would happen so randomly that no explanation was enough. Many people started to develop insomnia, not sleeping until they were sure the clock that day would go its straight course. Public transport would try to avoid having buses or trains during these times, but it wasn't always possible. It was also never easy to know or predict if there would be an accident with those. As for planes, there had been a few plane crashes, but not enough to suspend all flights. Suspicious people would, of course, avoid flying during these times. At Lydia's bus, 0097 hit the clock. It was the longest time of the devil ever, and the road was empty. The longest recorded anomaly, 3 years prior, had reached 00.90 before resetting. No one knew what might happen if the clocks ever reached 0099. Some whispered it would mean the end of the world.
It will go back to 1 o'clock as normal.
A few minutes later, they watched the clock go from 0099 to a blurred screen, its digits glitching into unreadable symbols. The bus started to shudder violently, as if an earthquake. They heard a scream from a woman, but it didn't come from the bus. Lydia looked outside her window and saw a massive fire on the highway getting closer to the bus. The heat seeped into the bus. The driver tried to open the bus doors to let people out so they could escape the fire, but the door was stuck.
Doors are stuck.
Oh my God, we are going to die.
They started to feel the heat getting closer to them, and they tried to break glasses with whatever they could. Then the bus trembled, and it was 1 a.m. The fire vanished. The bus stopped trembling. Outside, the highway was dark and empty, as if nothing had happened. The bus continued its journey with the 3 passengers as quiet as ever. The recurrence of the time of the devil became more frequent in the following years, and each time the clock pushed further into the 90s. The predictions were that beyond 0099, everyone would die and the world would end. And so people started to stop sleeping almost all night. Lydia knew, as did everyone else, that one day the clock might not reset. And when that day came, humanity would be forced to confront whatever lay beyond 0099. And then it did.